What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Lexi J Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Lexi Johnson. This is my husband and co-host, Brett Johnson. Brett, how are you? How's your week going?
It's going good. Just getting things rolling, but it's good.
Anything noteworthy?
Not really. It's getting nice and cool outside. Mornings are cool. The days are warm.
The weather yesterday was perfect.
Yeah, this is the ideal time of year.
Yeah, this is when Missouri thrives. There's like 3 weeks a year, and we're in it.
Give it more credit. It's like 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's a very small percentage that Missouri's weather is actually optimal. We get all 4 seasons in the strongest effect of each of them.
It's very true.
But yeah, this is the ideal time to visit Missouri if you've ever wanted to.
Prime time.
For sure. But this week I wanted to talk about something that's super top of mind for me. And that's capacity as a state of mind. That is something that I think about quite often, but I think coming off of this past weekend, it's for sure something that's been on my mind even more. And I've had several conversations about it. Capacity is a state of mind. I can't remember where I first read that. But I remember like reading that and it kind of stopping me in my tracks, because I think that all of us think at some point, like, you have hit a wall where you are no longer capable of adding anything to your plate, and you're no longer capable of, adding any more expectations to yourself. And then you push past it, and then that becomes the new norm. And then you can look back at that point where you're like, I really thought that I was done. I thought that I was maxed out there. And I think about this a lot of times, in business or in your physical health and, pursuing excellence in those terms. But I think like a really good example of it, I don't have kids myself, but I can only imagine like having one child or one baby and being like, there's no possible way that I can be spread more thin, because I'm waking up in the middle of the night and I'm changing a million diapers and, I'm still doing everything else that I was doing prior to this baby. And now I have to support a human. Like, there's no way I can add more. And then you have another kid and you just figure it out. And then maybe you have a third kid and you still figure it out. And I just think it's kind of like a graduation period where you're like, you feel like you've done it all. Mm-hmm. And then somehow you just always figure it out. But you will only figure it out if more is asked of you, if you ask more of yourself.
Mm-hmm. I think kids are like the ultimate example of capacity as a state of mind, because like, unlike other things in life, kids it's like a non-negotiable. Like, if you're a good parent, then you're going to figure out a way to take care of the next kid and the next kid. And it's a non-negotiable. Whereas if you try to introduce something else new into your life that you don't consider a non-negotiable, like a living, breathing human that you have to take care of, then you just don't treat it like it's something that matters.
I think that's true. It gives you a zero option mentality.
Right.
And if you do feel like you have an option, like, maybe someone else should have
exactly.
those kids.
I said, assuming you're a good parent.
Yeah. Yeah, we had that conversation. We were at dinner and we weren't even talking about like, capacity as a state of mind. But over this past weekend, I took my challenge winners to St. Louis. We did the Dream Team weekend. So they got to hang out with some of the Lexi J Wellness team. And we had a great, great time. So I have a lot of takeaways as far as like capacity being a state of mind in terms of the physical. But we were at dinner talking, and 3 of the women had kids, and they were just talking about like, you just figure it out. You like, I can't remember what was said, because half of us didn't have kids and the other half did. And someone had asked a question about like, how did you know how to do that? Or how did you know, what you were doing was right, or what you were doing was the best way? And they all said like, you don't, you just do what you feel is best, and you do that until you know better. And then when you know better, you do more. Like, you do that. And that should be the approach we take in so many ways. But like you said, with kids, you don't have another option. Like, you are forced to deliver on the expectations and execute day in and day out, whether you feel like it or not. You don't have to get psyched up to change a diaper. You don't have to get psyched up to take your kids to school or to make sure that they're fed, because that's life or death. That is, that's a non-negotiable. But we often just put so many like insurance plans, I think, on the other endeavors that we go into. Like, if I have time, then I'll start pursuing my health. If I have time, or, if it's in my schedule, if I feel like it, I'll meal prep, I'll do this. But we just put so many built-in like safety nets of, if it doesn't work out, you know what, it's all right. But with kids, like, you have to figure it out. It doesn't matter if you're not feeling up to it. It doesn't matter if you're motivated. It doesn't matter if you've had a bad day or a long day at work. Those kids are still going to need you. And I think that we should start treating ourselves, whether it's, personal development as far as like mental health and, personal success, or just like fitness, being your most physically healthy, your mentally healthiest. You need to start treating that as if it's a non-negotiable, as if you don't have another option. Mm-hmm. And take out those insurance plans.
Yeah. We put all these preventative measures in place in our life to prevent something bad from happening. And in the same way, we put all these preventative measures in place that inhibit our own growth. And these are all just really mindset things. We tell ourselves that we don't have time to do this. We tell ourselves we don't have the money to do this, so on and so forth. We just preach these things to ourselves, and we think that we're doing ourselves a favor. And just like if you have a preventative measure put in place where we've got a sump pump in the back and we've got a battery operated backup to make sure that our basement doesn't flood. Well, that's a preventative measure. That's a positive thing in our life. But in the same way, you put a preventative measure in your life and you say, well, I don't have time to do this because I have to focus on this. And you tell yourself this, saying that, this is for the greater good. This is to make sure that I don't basically shortchange something that I'm already doing in my life. There's no way that I can take on more. But it's really just you're shortchanging your life. You're shortchanging your capabilities. And again, whenever something gets thrown at you that you have no option other than to address and to implement into your life, you make it work. You do. You always make that work. If your kid's sick and you normally think you could never take on another thing, you're going to make sure your kid is taken care of. You should apply it the same way, where if you need to get healthier, if you need to implement a workout plan, if you need to implement a nutrition plan, if you need to implement a mental wellness plan to make sure that your life doesn't just completely fall apart, then you need to do that thing, and you need to make sure that it's a priority in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, it really is. It's hard to fathom when you're in the state, because you do feel like you're at max capacity, and I completely get that. But you have to be the one that asks more of yourself, because no one else can get that out of you. No one else can, force it. No one's going to come do the work for you. So you have to intentionally put yourself into an uncomfortable situation, and that's just unnatural. It truly is. Like, your brain doesn't want to be uncomfortable like that. So you have to continually and repetitively ask more and convince yourself, coax yourself to get uncomfortable. And then if you do that often enough, then that stretches, that expands your capacity. And then before you know it, like, you're delivering day in and day out and these are your new standards, what used to be your goals. And it's just a matter of continuing, you'll ask another inch of yourself, and push harder in your workouts, expand your horizons and the content you consume, who you follow, who is, what content are you being exposed to, and how is that stimulating you? I think that we just shortchange ourselves, and we're on autopilot for so much of our day. And I do the same thing a lot of times, but it's like the quality of your life is depending on the questions and the habits that you ask of yourself. And if you're dumbing them down just for the sake of comfort, like, you're not doing anyone any favors. You're really shortchanging your own life.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to go into detail about Austin?
Yeah, so I have a couple examples of just like, it was so neat to see this in action. So over this weekend when we were in St. Louis, a friend of mine that works at First Form HQ, he had committed, probably 10 months ago, he had committed to run 22 hours straight in order to raise awareness and raise money for veteran suicide. And if you didn't know, on average, and I think that honestly, after reading more on it, I think that these numbers are underreported, but on average, 22 veterans, United States military veterans, commit suicide a day. And he had made that his cause. So in honor of that, he wanted to run 22 hours straight, and he took off on September 22nd at noon and then finished on September 23rd at 10 a.m. And we had the opportunity to run a few times with him. So we ran after he was a few hours in or whatever, and he was just passing 16 miles. And at that point, I was like, geez, 16 miles is probably further than 99% of the entire world has ran. And he's not even a fourth of the way through. Like, that would be so easy to be like, 16 miles is pretty good. We could hang it up here.
Let's do it in miles, not hours.
Yeah. He's like, you misheard me. I said miles, not hours. But to also give a little bit more backstory on Austin, he's 25 years old. He was born with a cyst on his brain, and he was partially paralyzed on half of his body. So he has limited mobility on one half of his body. If you see him, like, you would notice that one of his legs is like stiffer. He doesn't have a lot of joint mobility in his ankle. And his arm is the same way on that same side. So like, that already is a reason where, again, 99.9% of people in that condition would say, like, I was dealt a really bad hand, and this is why I can't do anything. This is why I will not, not live up to my potential, because I have no potential. A lot of people they take the cards they're dealt with and they just kind of relegate themselves to that life, which made it so much more inspiring to see him do this. And the first time we ran with him, we ran with the entire group that was with us. So it was Lexi J Wellness Girls, and then a few of my employees and I, and we were running with him. And he had just passed 16 miles, and it was so neat just to hear him talk, and he was so inspiring for us. So we were running, and I was like, this whole time, I'm like, he's just past 16 miles. He has hours and hours and hours to go. So I'm not going to ask him a bunch of questions, because this dude needs to save his breath, his energy. And so we were running for a little bit, and all of a sudden he's like, we need to turn the energy up back to front, because we're like kind of running in a single file line almost, or 2x2s. He's like, back to front. Tell me when you started working with Lexi, and then what's the most positive impact. And we all, everyone took part. And then he went on a little speech, and he was just like, your guys' stories inspire me so much. And it just goes to show you're so much more capable of what you think than what you think you are. And you're impacting people. He said, you guys think that you're just average Joes, but being here inspires me. And I guarantee, like, there are people back home that you're inspiring. And that was so neat. Like, this dude is running 22 hours, and no one asked him to do that. He's not getting any like money for this. He did this outside of his work schedule.
There's no publicity.
Yeah. This was all just his own cause. He doesn't have a big following on social media, so it's not like, he's getting a ton of praise or anything like that. I think he did get a lot of recognition just because it drew quite a bit of attention just from people sharing, but that's for sure not what he set out to do. So then, we had ran a lap or so with him, and then we went on with our business. And then later that night, something happened where Maiken is one of my employees. We had to take someone home just because she had a family emergency. So we came back to St. Louis, and we made it around like 2:30 in the morning. So it was just her and I, and we were going to go back to our Airbnb. And we were like, you know what? Our Austin has been running for what now? 14 hours. Like, it's the dead of night. I don't know if anyone's over there with him, but I just want to make sure he's good. So we should go over there. So we got over there, and thankfully there were a few other people that were still running with him. So we hopped in with them at 2:30 in the morning. We ended up running 2 more miles with him. And I had just asked him, I'm like, so surely, if you're doing something like this, you must have had like a personal story or a personal connection to this cause. Like, someone you knew loved dearly must have been a victim of veteran suicide. And he was like, actually, no, that was just something that really I felt, compelled to do, because he said, I wasn't meant to live a life this sweet. And I feel like every day that I put 2 feet on the ground is an opportunity to live up to a potential. And that was like arguably the most inspiring thing I've ever heard in my entire life. That was the coolest thing.
Keep in mind, this is 14 hours into constant running.
14 hours into...
Still has that perspective.
Yeah. He said, I wasn't meant to live a life this sweet. And every day I get to put 2 feet on the ground is one that I'm not going to take for granted. And that just that was a gut punch, because so many of us, we put 2 feet on the ground and our first thought is a complaint. Yeah. And what a blessing it is. It would
be very easy for him to just start complaining the remaining 8 hours that he has to go.
Oh, yeah. And we're like, can we get you any food? Can we bring you anything? And he's like, no, I have everything I need. Like, just you being here means the world to me. And it was the coolest thing. So then Maiken and I had ran 2 miles. We went back to the Airbnb. We slept a little bit. And then came back. We all wanted to be there when he finished, and we finished with him. And it was like, he finished the 22 hours and sat on this cooler. Mind you, like his feet were blistered. If you run for that long, your feet are also super, super swollen. And he just broke into tears, and he thanked everyone. Like, he said that he couldn't have done it without the support and the encouragement, which honestly, after, getting to know him even further, I definitely think he could have. Like, that was grit and resilience in human form, and it was the coolest thing ever. It made me teary-eyed just to hear him to hear him say that, and to watch him complete that, because it was incredible. I don't know that I'll ever get to see someone run 22 hours consecutively. But he just, the last thing he said to all of us, like to everyone that had finished with him, he was like, I hope if there's one thing that you can take away from this, it's that you're so much more capable than you think you are. And that lit a fire under all of us. So mind you, we've got some challenge winners with us. And these women had, previously been in a tough spot where they didn't feel super confident, or they didn't feel very capable in their own bodies, or, in their physical health. So that like made us want to ratchet up even more as far as like what kind of workouts we were doing. So the last day we were honestly just going to so we did a really hard workout after we finished with Austin on Saturday, spent the day like just talking about it, and we just kept coming back to it. And anytime we would complain or be like, man, I'm so sore and my feet hurt, we're like, I can't imagine how sore Austin is, or anything like that. And it was just like, that new benchmark is crazy. Because now I'm like, I don't have any room to complain. I don't know what do I have, to complain about when I'm in such an amazing position. So we were going to just do a walk on Sunday morning, have breakfast, and then head out. And then one of the girls had talked about the Impossible Mile Challenge. And if you don't know what the Impossible Mile Challenge is, it's you do 400 meter burpees, 400 meter lunges, 400 meter bear crawl, and then you run a 400. So it comes out to a total mile. And immediately one of the other girls was like, we should do that. We should do it tomorrow. So we got up early, and this was tough. We were well aware that this was going to be really, really challenging, but just to watch them overcome so much. And mind you, these are people that, one of these girls, 21 years old, has lost over 80 pounds. And as she was finishing, the bear crawls were by and like far and away the hardest part. And as she was finishing the bear crawls, she wanted to quit so bad. And she was like, I did not get here by not working my ass off. And it was the coolest thing, because another one of the girls is like, a year ago, I would have laughed at this. There's no way I would have even attempted it, let alone finish it. And it just goes to show, it's like your capacity is continually expanding if you are willing to ask more of yourself. And I think that that's just something that I think that we need to be reminded of constantly, because you may be, maybe on a hot streak, and like putting on cruise control is super tempting, but I know that there's more out there for you. And you may be at a really low point, and you're like, I can't even relate to these people having these amazing days, because, I feel like I'm just barely scraping by. But there's so much more that you're capable of if you're willing to ask, if you're willing to demand that of yourself, and then continually show up.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool.
It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And I don't know that I'll ever see it again. And
probably won't.
Just his
awesome.
His perspective on it all was so...
I think that's one of the most impressive things to me, is his perspective on life.
Yeah, Mike and I talked about that so much. Just like, one, it's really rare to have someone that young. Like, he's 25. 25-year-old guys typically aren't so introspective and thoughtful. Mm-hmm. And he had said something to us. He was like, I brought headphones, but I haven't put them in. He didn't put headphones in that whole time. He was like, I brought headphones with me, but I haven't put them in. I've just been having too many good thoughts. I don't want to waste them. And
I love that.
I know, it was the sweetest thing I've ever heard. But it was so inspiring. And I just keep coming back to what he said. He said, like, I don't think life was meant to be this sweet for me. So every day that I get to put 2 feet on the ground is one I'm not going to take for granted. Yeah. And if that sentence like doesn't make you want to do something crazy, I left and I was like, I want to ruck a marathon. I want to do something that challenges me. I want to do something that's difficult. And then even Monday, so the day after everyone got home, we were texting in the Dream Team group chat, everyone that had been there this weekend. We were all super sore from doing the Impossible Mile, but everyone was like, I saw Austin's story and I'm going to ruck today. There's no way I'm not going to do something uncomfortable after seeing that. There's no way I'm not going to show up today after that. And that just sets the bar. So that also goes to show that, you know, if you are doing things that are making yourself uncomfortable and you're pushing beyond your self stated limits, people are watching, people are being inspired. I can't imagine how many people that feat lit a fire under. And this is, you know, an average, quote unquote, average guy, like doesn't have a big following on social media, not even close to a check mark or 1 million followers or anything. What we often look at is the influencers and the people making an impact in this world, but that couldn't be any further from the truth. It's the people that are just willing to make an impact.
A few things that come to mind for me, just rooting from that whole story that you just told. One, it goes back to a conversation we have often, and that's who you surround yourself with is going to impact you heavily in what you do and what you think and how you act. And it's obvious that the first form culture and the first form community, the first form, you know, the people at HQ, that they have made an impact on him, not to take away at all from him, you know, taking that upon himself to do that. But I think that speaks volumes. So that's one of the big things that I see. Two, forces a gratitude mindset, because he clearly has a lot of gratitude for the situation that he's in and that he lives in daily. And he isn't taking for granted, you know, what kind of life he can live. And three, with the capacity as a state of mind topic, I think that a good way for me to view it personally is that we view our mind as this metal box. And basically, you know, this confined space can only hold so much. But in all reality, as life goes on, if you force it to, it becomes this pliable surface. And it shapes and molds into whatever you want it to become. But you have to take it upon yourself to make it this pliable surface and to expand your horizons in order for that to actually happen. Because if you preach these limitations to yourself, as you say all the time, you get to keep them.
Yeah. I was reading your shirt as you were saying that. It says old ways won't open new doors. And I think that just like that's so true. It's exactly what we're talking about. But yeah, when you preach your own limitations, you get to keep them. And that's an important one, because we are the ones that are writing the script by and large for our own lives. So if you say that this is all you're capable of and this is what you'll coast on until the day you die, then you're writing the script for it. You're going to, you know, self-actualize that. But on the other hand, if you say, you know, I think that I'm capable of a lot more than I'm asking and what I'm doing right now, and then you continue to show up and you act like that and you act as if you are already that person that is capable of more, you're eventually going to become that. And it's just a matter of asking and showing up for yourself and doing that. You know, it's not enough to make the promises to yourself, but you also have to keep them. And that's where confidence is built. Exactly.
Yeah. The confidence comes from setting out to do something that you thought was unachievable or, you know, beyond your capabilities, and proving yourself wrong and showing yourself what you can do. And you have to get outside of your comfort zone. That's the whole thing, is you have to get outside your comfort zone to build that confidence. If you continuously just keep doing exactly what you're doing, you're never going to get that confidence. If you say, I'm just not a confident person, I'm very insecure. Well, some of us are prone to that. I'm prone to that myself. But something that's helped dramatically in my life is getting out of my comfort zone and proving to myself that I'm so much more capable than I ever gave myself credit for.
Absolutely. Yeah, I keep thinking about it, just such an admiration for him and for what he's done and the impact that he's made through that, that it makes me excited. I mean, like, I feel like I need to continue to ask more. I need to raise my standards.
Yeah. And again, being around those types of people, it is inspiring. It's powerful to surround yourself with the people that are pushing themselves beyond what the perceived limits are.
Yeah.
Good for him. That's awesome.
It was incredible. I'm so excited.
And I'm glad you guys were there to witness it, because like how cool of a thing, how powerful of a thing to not only just to see online, but like it's another thing to witness that type of thing in person and to like kind of live it with him.
Yeah, and it's like it's a bond that's brought through collective suffering. Like the women that I brought with me, both on my team and the challenge winners, that was the first time that they'd ever met Austin. So I knew him before. We talk every time I met First Form, but like that was the first time they had ever met him. And it's in doing something challenging. And mind you, we only ran, just a fraction of the miles with him that they did. So, or that he ran. So, I mean, just such a small amount, but like it's that collective suffering, and it's you doing it right there beside him and seeing all that he's going through, but he's continuing to put one foot in front of the other. And then despite being, I can only imagine how uncomfortable, he was still thanking everyone and still encouraging and empowering us to say, you're capable of so much more. You have to ask that of you. And that was really cool for them to see. And they left, I think, like feeling like they made a friend in him. And it was neat. It was very special. I was really glad that we were there for it.
Definitely. I'd say he's a positive domino.
He for sure is. He was, the next morning, he was in the recovery room when we were getting done with our workout. And he was wearing a Lexi J Wellness hat. So I felt awesome. Pretty cool. The most popular guy in St. Louis that day. He was wearing LJW.
That's really cool.
It was awesome. Yeah, I'm excited for him. All right, guys. Capacity is a state of mind. I just ask that today you ask more of yourself and then you show up and you deliver on that, because I know that you're so much more capable than you're giving yourself credit for.
Yep. This is a topic that we've discussed before, but it doesn't make it any less relevant to what we're doing every day.
I would talk about it every week if I could.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is one of the most... It's one of the easiest topics to discuss, and one of the most relevant things that people can just relate to, all the time, because it doesn't matter if we talk about this today. Tomorrow, you may wake up and think that, you've got a limited capacity in what you can actually accomplish. Like every day is a battle to train your mind to think the way that you would like it to think.
Yeah. And I think that it just hits different throughout different seasons of your life, because the last time we talked about this, you could have been smooth sailing. And then since then you were hit with something like a medical condition or, a financial position that you weren't ready for, or, family circumstances, anything like that. And you were just, circumstances change, and then you are forced to, figure it out. And that's just how it goes. But in the things as far as like, pursuing physical and mental health and financial success, a lot of times, sometimes you are going to be put in circumstances where you are forced to figure it out. And unfortunately, like that happens. I hope that doesn't happen to you, and I hope that you're proactive about it ahead of time. But like, there are very few opportunities where you're going to be put into a position where you're continually asked, you're continually forced to get uncomfortable. You are the one that's dictating that. So it is hard because you have to police yourself, but if you get into a habit of asking more of yourself and expecting more of yourself, then eventually those become your new standards. But that interim period, it is uncomfortable, and you just have to continue coming back to it.
Mm-hmm. And you get to lean on those new standards. Again, this is an evolution of your mind and training yourself what you are capable of.
Yeah. And like you had said, like just who you surround yourself with, it exposes you to more. And then it kind of like, I think about it as if like you're driving at night and you have your dim lights on, and like that's all you can see. But then you turn your brights on and they're like, there's so much more out there. Mm-hmm. And I have pretty high standards for myself. But on the way home from St. Louis when we were driving, I was just talking to Mike, and I was like, I just feel like I'm selling myself so short. Like I need to raise my standards. And it's after coming off of being around those people that hold themselves to a high standard and seeing something so incredible accomplished that, it inspires you to do more. And it kind of opens up new doors and sheds a little light on the gap that you could be filling.
100%.
So, yeah. Who you surround yourself with matters for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. I think that's all I've got. You got anything left?
I don't think so.
Thanks so much, guys. We will talk to you next Wednesday. If you have any topic suggestions or questions that you'd like us to touch on, you can always email those to our email,
pod@lexijwellness.com.
But until then, we will talk to you next week.